The radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 90, recorded on Friday, May 26th from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we do the same thing we do every week, Pinky. Cry for the fate of humanity. But first, the headlines.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
First up in headlines, Meta received a record fine from the European Union data, topping out at $1.3 billion. The European Union slapped Meta with that record lawsuit over privacy concerns.
And by Meta, you mean Facebook.
Thank you. Yeah, I probably should clarify that just to be safe. Just in case.
Rebranded Facebook into Meta.
It was as successful of rebranding as Comcast did with, what was
Xfinity.
it? Xfinity. The fine was over Meta sending European user data to the US, which is against the EU's privacy rules. This also entails more differences between the European Union and United States, basically because we don't have any federal privacy rules here because we suck.
We only care if it's a Chinese company stealing all of our private data and selling it, not if it's anybody else. We just let it happen.
According to the article, the EU gave Meta 6 months to bring their processing and data storage of that data into compliance, which basically means that they would have had to delete data from hundreds of millions of EU users going back 10 years.
Which I'm sure they'll do 100%.
I mean, that's why they took the fine to begin with. And then now Meta has until October to delete the data and stop transferring data to the US.
Prove that.
Well, okay. So the reason why I even put this on here is one, because it's a record privacy fine that I think is a new era of regulation. We were literally just talking about regulation of data right before this anyway, although it's with AI, not with general like Facebook stuff. But when will the United States ever, if ever, catch up to the EU on privacy concerns?
When it affects a U.S. corporation, never. The only time we care, like I said, is when it's TikTok, when it's a Chinese company. Then we have concerns about our privacy and what kind of data they're harvesting. But clearly they don't care when it's a U.S. company, as we see that no one has said anything about the way Facebook uses their customers here in the United States and how they profit off of everyone's personal data. It's not a big deal here. I mean, you look at what else the EU is doing. They got Apple to change to USB-C for standardization so that people wouldn't have to spend so much money buying proprietary phone accessories.
Stupid lightning cables.
But we don't do anything like that here in the U.S.
That sounds incredible, man.
Because that's government encroachment into the free market. Who cares that it's better for the consumers and safer for everyone? That's beside the point. We can't stop people from making a profit. And it's fine if they make a profit off of our literal identities, which is exactly what this is.
Well, and I still think back to how haphazard the right has been, even with crap like setting environmental goals. We talked about the whole gas stoves crap before. And now you're seeing legislation to make sure we cannot ban or even put like climate goals in place.
Well, they want to destroy the EPA and the DNR.
Well, right. So my whole point is that if we can't even do that, how are we ever going to have something more conceptually based like data privacy online? Especially when you have an entire, I'll say the vast majority of the Congress and Senate that are over like 70 years old and have no idea what to do with any of this stuff. They can hardly work a flip phone.
Right. Or even who they are, where they are.
Yeah.
Dianne
Feinstein. See, we call it Democrats on this show. We're not biased. So what are your thoughts then on like people were saying that this is unreasonable for Meta then and that this will be undoable because of the amount of data that Meta will have to delete?
It wasn't unreasonable for them to collect all this data, was it?
Oh, that was really good. That was a really good comeback. I like that. you shut me the hell. I'm a bad devil's advocate. I came so fast. No, but I completely agree though. If, like you said, if they're able to do all this stuff and, like you said, make profits off our own identities to begin with and our own data to begin with,
and set up all of the networks to be able to sell this information. I mean, there was a lot more work setting this up than it is to just delete the data or stop collecting it.
So good job, Europe. You're doing, again, way better than us. So hats off to you. But I want to talk about more U.S. stuff, about how we are the best.
Speaking of taking clothes off.
Oh, God. The Illinois Attorney General Kwame Rollo released a report recently on his investigation into Catholic sex abuse within the state of Illinois. According to the report, from 1950 to 2019, 451 Catholic clergy abused just under 2,000 different victims, 1,997 to be exact. The report went on to describe Catholic leaders as, quote, woefully slow to acknowledge the extent of the abuse and accuse them of frequently dragging their feet to confront accused clergy.
It's almost like, I don't know, we should have a third party that is responsible for accusing people of child abuse and holding them accountable.
I can't think of anything that would be remotely like that. You're living in a fantasy world.
But yes, for the Catholic Church, this is nothing new. This seems to be kind of their main focus.
I was going to say, it's their MO at this point.
Right, isn't that like an old Louis C.K. bit? The child molestation is the actual goal of the Catholic Church. All of the other stuff is just busy work.
That was a South Park joke from back in the early 2000s, for God's sakes. And it's still happening. We still see it happening today. And we're still dealing with all of these people who are trying to defend it. I mean, yes, good on, I guess, whoever the Archdiocese in Illinois for the Catholic Church who came out fully in support of this report saying that this should be a wake-up call to Catholics all around the world. But the wake-up call should be, you need to get out of the Catholic Church.
Right, stop supporting them. Stop giving them your money. Stop letting them alone with your kids.
I'm going to just keep saying this. How many abused and sexually molested children do you need to have before you realize this is not the good organization it claims to be?
It never was. I look throughout history. It's always been a horrible organization.
Right.
From its inception.
And to make matters worse, the Catholic Church actively covered it up. That's the other part about this too, is that according to the report, it stated that the church failed to warn parishioners about possible abusers in their midst, sometimes even decades after allegations emerged. So you have church leaders not only being fully aware of this, but actively covering it up. And then when the AG actually asked about it years ago, they put out some information and hid it from the AG until they eventually found it in their own investigation. So now you have, and again, this is where I have absolutely no empathy for whoever that I don't care. I'm not going to open the article. Whoever that archdiocese is from.
Whatever bishop is.
Yeah, I don't care. From Illinois. Because they actively sat on information that hindered the investigation.
Yeah, they've never been forthcoming. There was just that big report we had in a story, I think last year, in France.
Yes.
That they covered up thousands of abuse cases. We've had one of the biggest ones here in Wisconsin with the deaf school, where a priest just abused kids for decades, and they did nothing about it.
I mean,
and the person that oversaw that covered that up and actively kept money away from the victims is now a cardinal and might become pope someday.
Ugh. Get out of the Catholic Church and tell everyone you know to get out of the Catholic Church. Friends don't let friends be Catholic. That should be the new saying today.
Let's move on to another horrible organization, the Wisconsin Republican-led legislature.
This last week, Wisconsin Republicans introduced an amendment to the Wisconsin Constitution forbidding the closure of houses of worship during a state of emergency. You want to guess what that's in reference to?
The constant outbreaks of whooping cough that we have in Wisconsin?
Absolutely. You hit it right on the nose. It was actually Whoop 19, to be honest. According to a co-sponsorship memo, and actually for those of you who don't know what that is, when a bill tries to become a law, legislators will put out what's called a co-sponsorship memo beforehand, send it out to all the offices, and then ask them, do you want to sign on to this thing? So the bill actually hasn't been given an actual assembly bill number yet, but it will very soon. But I just wanted to read to you from this memo that was sent out to actual offices in 2023. When we take our oath of office, we swear to uphold the Constitution of Wisconsin and the United States. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution, Webster's Dictionary, defines freedom as states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. They're really trying to fill up that whole space. You know, it's like
right. You got to pad it out.
I'm gonna find this really long quote. Maybe that'll hit my word count. It goes on to say, during the COVID-19 pandemic, one of these fundamental rights was stripped from many individuals. Churches were forced to shut down in the name of public safety at a time when people needed their faith the most.
I thought you could just pray COVID away. What happened?
These actions exacerbated the mental health strain that the pandemic inflicted on residents who were unable to access their place of worship and their spiritual leaders.
You know how many children went unabused?
Saved so many lives. But again, like that's my whole point with this thing. Imagine the freaking irony where you have a literal pandemic where people are dying every single day, and then your only thought is, why can't I go to church?
So they mentioned the First Amendment, one of which, the right to peaceably assemble. No one could do that either. Should there be no restrictions on gatherings anywhere then?
No, it's only for religions.
Pandemic?
Only for religions.
And country music concerts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stupid. No, the government can't make any laws or rules, restrictions to support public health because it interferes with your freedoms. We shouldn't need to, right? Like, there shouldn't have ever had to have been any lockdowns, restrictions, anything like that, because it should have been common sense for everyone to just stay home during a global pandemic.
Well, and that's the whole point. And again, you have so much evidence that religion not only did not do what it was supposed to do, but actively made the pandemic worse at every single turn it could have made. And even today, it's still trying to do so. And that's where it gets me really freaking angry when people want to say, take my religion seriously. Absolutely not. If you want special treatment during a pandemic to go spread the disease because you want to sit there and play make-believe all day long, I will absolutely not respect that. And what is the point of government then if we can't actually control what's going on during a literal state of emergency? The free market isn't helping us because, like you said, people made actively the wrong choices time and time again.
And we're proud of it.
And are still proud of it. And this legislation's a great example of that too. They do not care about all the people that died because of the pandemic. And probably a lot of them still think that it's a conspiracy made up by frickin' Fauci.
It's all about control. They want to keep you in your house for some reason. I'm not sure why, but yep, it was just Fauci and the New World Order just running rampant in the streets while everyone else was shut inside.
The good news is this was actually introduced last session and it didn't go anywhere because we have Tony Evers. And hopefully this won't go anywhere either.
It's just more of the same wanting special treatment for religion and the religious.
Yep.
You can't restrict my ability to go to a church and congregate in large numbers and spread deadly disease to all of the members of my community because that's my freedom.
But we wouldn't have any good examples, you think, Jason, of, I don't know, maybe the religious right targeting anyone else and maybe restricting their freedoms? I don't know, maybe an entire multinational corporation.
Well, surprising you would say that, as we've learned this week that Target has decided to remove or move some Pride Month products after threats against employees and their buildings. And this comes after there was a video that went viral, it was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Of some chud, I don't know his name and I don't care what his name is, going into a Target, harassing customers and employees, asking them if they support the satanic LGBTQ agenda. And as it turned out, the Target employee was an atheist, told him that she doesn't believe in Satan or God and that he needed to leave. There was also a plainclothes, loss prevention employee that stepped in and told the guy to get lost as he was trying to argue that they're grooming children by having Pride Month displays in their stores. Your rainbow flag turned my daughter gay.
Well, and there was also a lot of conspiracies about tuck-in suits, how they're trying to push transgenderism tuck-in suits onto kids, even though that was completely false.
And it was a swimsuit for adults.
Yeah.
And was not available in children's
Correct.
sizes.
Well, that didn't stop people from sending literal bomb threats to multiple Target locations, including that in Utah. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance tweeted out, quote, "Target could have decided to stay out of the culture wars. Instead, it decided to wage war on a large share of its customer base."
Wage war.
This is why people get freaking...
Good job, Ohio.
Yeah, this is why people get freaking radicalized into actually doing bomb threats and threatening violence against actual Target employees. When you say a corporation who's just putting a small little section on Pride is waging war against you.
Right, them, again, we've mentioned this before, the reason that they're marketing towards LGBTQ customers is because they want their money.
Right.
That's all this is about. This is capitalism. This is the free marketplace, and your response is no, that can't exist. It has to be restricted. Somebody should do something about it. If not, I'm going to blow up this store.
And again, what's even crazier is, and I don't remember if that was in that video or if it was in a different video I watched, they were talking about some like satanic apparel, and the guy like reached and grabbed like a small bag or a purse or something like that, and it said, be proud of who you are, or be happy with who you are, something like that, and said, this is satanic. I'm like, what are you talking about? It just says be happy with who you are. It's a positive message, man. And he said, like, this is from the brand that said Satan was cool.
Yeah, and
I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's some made up story about something being sold at Target that's not. It's just a random picture from an online store that someone just associated with Target and said that it came from Target online.
These people are freaking insane, dude. And what makes me even angrier is it's having real effects. And I don't like that. You know, I keep thinking back to that one stupid t-shirt I had when I was a teenager that said, don't underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups. And every year I have another like example of how that is so true. Because you have stupid mobs doing crap like this that are actually endangering real people who are just trying to go about their lives.
Oh, and now this is done what they wanted to do. Target's caved in, said that they'll move the displays out of eyesight when you walk into the store, and in other areas they're actually removing displays altogether.
So what are your thoughts on
This
that?
is just caving to domestic terrorism.
I mean, yeah.
These people should just be arrested instead, and then we move on with our lives, and they can sit in prison where they belong.
Well, and this is also why you should never expect corporations to take a stance on anything.
Well, you saw it from Bud Light too, right? They caved in.
And again, I'm not going to like fault Target too much, because if they are getting legitimate threats and their workers are getting threatened, and I would not want them to try to like take this crazy stance that's going to get a worker shot.
I don't know. I think you'd treat it the same way you would if someone who was, well, we'll put it in terms that the right can understand. If someone was Muslim, came into a Target and saw some Christian related, like, you know, eat, pray, love type stuff, and was like, this is offensive, it goes against my religion, if you don't take it down, I'm going to kill everyone in the store. You would never take that seriously. I don't care if it wasn't an entire group of people. You would be like, no, I'm sorry, that's not the world we live in, that you can just go to jail. And that's how would we react if it was any other group. But because it's evangelical Christians, as we talked about in the last story, they are catered to by everyone.
Yep.
And they act like they're persecuted at every step.
Yep.
And there's no way Target should take this seriously and do anything in response to this other than double down on their support for the LGBT community. And if they want to market during Pride Month, they should do it even harder.
Well, and let's be real here. This won't actually do anything to like, I saw other people talking about how like Target stock is dropping. Target stock is... Okay, here's the thing. First off, Bud Light has been doing just fine, I think, as far as I'm aware, even though with all the crazy stories about how they're failing. No, they're doing okay.
Well, they've been trending down for years now, like the rise of craft beer.
Right, because their product sucks. Like, let's be real here. So, yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. But it's the same thing with Target, though. You think people are actually going to, like, your average day Americans are going to stop going to Target and they're so much that they're going to affect Target's bottom line? Absolutely not. Get over yourselves. And again, we talk about this every freaking week. I know we're like a broken record at this point. The super anti-cancel culture crowd cares so freaking much about canceling people and canceling these companies and destroying these companies. Man, Jason, like, I remember like 10 years ago, we would get made fun of if we talked about Chick-fil-A.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's just a chicken sandwich, dude. Oh, what are you being so... Just don't go there for, you know, the beliefs. Go there for the chicken sandwich. I would hear that crap all the time. And the same people now are saying, we need to bankrupt Target. I think it was Charlie Kirk that says, victory comes when they file Chapter 11. And I'm like,
and Matt,
what are you talking
Matt Walsh
about?
also tweeted out like that this is their plan. They're doing this one store at a time. First it was Bud Light, now it's Target, and they're just going to keep picking their targets and moving one at a time. So this is just the beginning, and it is working.
So frustrating, man. Let's keep on the Republicans, because we have to at least talk about the exciting news that we got this week for the presidential primary for the GOP.
Who will be the also-rans in the 2024?
It is official. Trump has his biggest opponent yet. Tim Scott, underdog out of South Carolina, has officially announced his presidential campaign with a stunning launch. He raised tens of dollars from his speech. He's doing great. right. He's going to be taken very seriously.
A dozen people more know who he is now.
Yes, he does. Okay, maybe not Tim Scott. Like, Ron DeSantis has finally, after months of just taking crap left and right and just sitting there like a little beta male, finally announced his presidential campaign.
Oh, and what a launch it was.
On Twitter Spaces.
The audio only.
Well, can you explain what Twitter Spaces is for those who don't know what that is?
Sure, it's a segment of Twitter. It's basically their conference call software. So you have multiple people that are in, you have people that can only listen, and you have people that can speak, and you have moderators that control that. And it's just audio. So there's no video. So I don't know, Ron DeSantis trying to be a real throwback candidate, going back to like the 50s. Of radio-only campaign launches. It's an odd choice, but I think it's showing that he's marketing himself towards people like Elon Musk. Specifically, Elon Musk was there, and Musk's friend and former PayPal
exec or something.
Right, founder. I think he was like a early adopter of PayPal or early...
he's like a VC dude.
Right.
Yeah.
David Sachs.
So he did not do this alone.
Right. He's going after like the billionaire tech bro,
I guess.
Stands, which, I mean, Elon Musk has been just hemorrhaging fans over the past couple of years, so I'm not sure that that's the right demographic to target.
But even worse, Jason, is he went after the tech bros
and doesn't understand technology.
And failed so miserably because apparently the stream kept glitching over and over again for like 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay, so yes, the stream kept failing. People were trying to join, couldn't.
Kept getting kicked.
Right, but also, I don't know, and I couldn't tell the difference. This is one of the problems. I couldn't tell who it was speaking. And I know it wasn't Elon Musk, but you can't really tell the difference between DeSantis and Sachs. They have very similar voices. So I'm not sure who didn't know to not have your speakers on next to your microphone, but I'm guessing it's probably Ron DeSantis. And it kept feedback looping over and over because, as you know, if you did any of this ever, if you have speakers on and you're trying to speak into a microphone near those speakers, it's going to project what you're saying, your voice, through the microphone again. So you get that like 2-second delay of yourself and then your echo coming through the speaker, and it eventually just feedback loops and creates a loud noise. And that's what kept happening. And that was it was like 20 minutes of that.
Yeah.
And then they stopped the feed,
had to restart it.
Yeah, reset everything. And then I think there was only like 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Which is not that many.
Which was even funny because then Ron DeSantis' campaign kept talking about how there were so many people that tried to listen to it. They broke Twitter.
Right. They broke Twitter. No, Twitter just sucks. And
my favorite response to that whole thing has been, man, if you just did it on like the main segment of Fox News, you have gotten at least like 1.3 million viewers.
Yeah, easily.
But you did it on Twitter. And did Ron DeSantis actually talk about the kitchen table issues that everyday Americans talked about?
Well, they talked about Elon Musk and Twitter a lot. I think it was really more of an ad for Twitter than it was for Ron DeSantis' campaign.
Well, okay, that's another really good point because apparently a lot of it, because it was like an hour-long conversation, most of it was getting dominated by Musk and Sachs, where Ron couldn't even get in a word in edgewise on his own presidential launch.
Right.
And then
I guarantee you they're both donating a lot of money to some PAC that is donating to DeSantis.
Absolutely.
As payment for this. Because that's all this was like trying to get hype for Twitter.
Yes.
And it, as expected, failed miserably. I was concerned about the whole, Tucker Carlson's going to Twitter and saying that I don't think Twitter is built for video streaming, like that kind of bandwidth if a lot of people are going to try to watch this.
Well, now we know.
They can't even do audio. Yeah. And Twitter Spaces is buggy in and of itself. It was shut down after Musk took over Twitter for a while. And they just don't have the engineering teams. Like, he fired 90% of the Twitter staff. They don't have the employees to prop this stuff up anymore.
No, not at all. But again, like what I was going to say, though, is when they actually did talk, they talked about Dogecoin and other Bitcoin crap, because that's what David Sachs wanted to talk about.
And it's tech bro stuff.
Yeah. They talked about ESG and then like really super weird, and we're weird
it's
too.
It's a niche.
but niched like legal stuff and Chevron deference and all that other stuff. Like, what are you talking about? This is supposed to be your presidential launch speech, man. And then he literally read a stump speech on Twitter like you would for like, it was actually like a, give and take response from a real live crowd.
Like waiting for applause.
Yeah, and he read like a robot. And did you see his video that he sent out? Dude sounds like a robot.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a very standard Republican ad. It's just, there's crime everywhere and everything is horrible and you elect me, I'll make America great. I mean, I will bring us back, America.
But again, it's just...
He's just Trump light.
Where's the production value? It's just him speaking in front of a camera.
Yeah.
You have so much money. You're the next Donald Trump, supposedly, and you can't even get, like, B-roll? You get a American flag to stand in front of, and that's all you get.
And it looked like he was walking out to, like, a big audience. That was, like, kind of the impression that you got as he's, like, walking through the curtain, right? It's going to be, like, this big crowd on the other side. Right. And there's no one. It's just him alone.
It's just him. So what do you think this says about Ron DeSantis and his campaign?
It says that he's just, like, a worse version of Trump, like, as far as packaging himself and marketing himself. The one thing that Trump is actually good at.
Well, and what DeSantis actually tried to say that he was going to be better at than Trump. I'm Trump without the baggage. I'm Trump who's competent and who will win.
He's not going to.
Dude, your campaign sucks, man.
His only hope, and I think this is literally the only reason that he's actually running, because I said it before, he does not have a chance against Trump, and he'd be better off just waiting until the next election, honestly, without tanking his future prospects in, like, running a failed campaign this year. But the only chance he has is Trump is in jail and cannot run or dies.
Right.
Those are like his only chances. If Trump is not there, then maybe he's got a shot at coming out of the Republican primary. But that's it. And even then, if he gets killed early, which very well might happen because everyone's going to be attacking him, because we'll talk about in a second, half of the other people that are running are Trump sycophants that are just there to fill a seat and to try to get themselves a vice president gig.
Yep.
He's going to get murdered. And then his campaign's going to be over.
Right.
Very, very early.
Well, and even more so is that while this was going on, while he finally launched his campaign crappily on Twitter, which he got made fun of by Trump for.
Yeah. Quite a bit.
Trump's PAC has been pummeling him in Florida with all these attack ads.
There was one that was like, it was a SpaceX rocket that crashed. They had video of it, and they put in the same font that Jeb Bush had for his campaign. They put Ron with the exclamation point, and the as the rocket like crashes and explodes on the launch pad. It was pretty good.
And I'm not going to make us listen to these, but if you have time, I'll put them in the show notes. You have like the pudding.
I've seen some of
Yeah,
these.
you have the pudding fingers ad, which...
It's a story of someone saying that like Ron DeSantis is disgusting.
Yeah.
Like when they're going on all these like tours across the country while he's supposed to be the governor of Florida.
Right.
That he just like didn't even have a spoon and was trying to eat a pudding cup and was just eating it with his fingers.
Yep. There's a Putin fingers ad, which is just insane because it's just like weird video of Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin having a phone call with this weirdest impersonation voiceover where it's like, Xi, have you seen what this Ron DeSantis guy has been doing? And it's so bizarre. And I cannot imagine that came out of a presidential campaign. But here we are. And then the latest one is where they're calling him Ron DeSales tax, where they're actually attacking him for upping sales taxes on Floridians and trying to also take away people's Medicare and health care and Social Security.
Which I can't believe I'm saying this, Ron DeSantis' defense, the sales tax is very high in Florida because they don't have a state income tax.
Right.
And does that harm regular working class people? Yes, that's what it's designed to do. But that is a Republican thing. They're trying to do that everywhere. They're trying to do that here in Wisconsin.
Right. And the whole thing about how Trump's trying to hit DeSantis on tax cuts and taking away Social Security and Medicare, I mean, that's exactly what Trump tried to do too. So,
well, that's another Republican thing that,
right.
Yes, Trump that is his stance now to try to be a populist in this election.
Right.
He's come out against trying to get rid of Social Security and Medicare, but that's what the GOP has been doing for the past 20 years, at least.
Right. So that now makes Ron DeSantis DeSantis the 9th person in the Republican primary so far, where now we have Trump, DeSantis, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, who is just this also like uber billionaire MAGA guy.
That's the guy who Don Lemon got into an argument with about the NRA thing.
Oh,
I was trying to think of on a couple episodes ago.
Perry Johnson is a former Arkansas governor. I think it's Arkansas. Asa Hutchinson, who's trying to be the anti-Trump candidate. Failed gubernatorial candidate Larry Elder, and another rich Ryan Brinkley, with potentials of Mike Pence and Chris Christie potentially coming soon.
Well, there are a few more. This list from NPR, they actually have Glenn Youngkin, the Virginia governor, Chris Sununu.
Yeah, but both of them were kind of like waving like off it now at this point, so I doubt they'll get in the race.
Well, Sununu, he might
Sununu is more likely than Youngkin is, I believe.
Because Sununu wants to be the moderate Republican, which, I mean, good luck. You're not getting anywhere doing that.
Right. What's John Bolton doing on this list? Get John Bolton out of here.
Yeah, they have John Bolton, Chris Christie, Liz Cheney, and Kristi Noem as well. I think Kristi Noem in 4 years, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think she's going to be running this time. But they're all like, these are all just really unknown people. And you're talking about the election. You're going to have to figure something out in a year. And I just don't see any of these people getting a high enough profile.
Well, no. I mean, the highest one out of this like maybes list is Mike Pence.
And most people hate him.
And they all hate him. Get ready for a bumpy primary, people.
Yeah, it's just going to be a lot of people sucking up to Trump, like your Nikki Haley's.
I mean, and Ron DeSantis, because he can't say anything bad about him still.
Well, he's going to have to.
I'm waiting to see the day.
Because otherwise, what's the point?
Right. But I'm waiting.
Because he's not going to be the vice presidential candidate. We already know that. Trump is attacking him.
Right.
So he's going to have to go on the offensive at some point, and he's not going to be able to out-Trump Trump, which is what you're going to need to do. He had the opportunity months ago.
He did.
Had he actually committed at that point.
Yep.
But now it's way too late. He's been attacked. It's been effective. He's seen by people like us as a super extreme, horrible,
crazy
racist
person,
bigot, just as bad, if not worse than Trump. And more extreme, all the laws that he is signing in Florida are absolutely insane. When you get to a general election, that's all it's going to be.
Well, and I heard a lot of analysts talking about DeSantis as he's trying to find this weird Ted Cruz-ish lane, which we know how that panned out. You know, where he was trying to be like this super far-right extremist fighter in Ted Cruz, but still be showing like, hey, I can get stuff done. I know what I'm doing. I can do stuff, but I'll still be a fighter for you. And he lost to Trump.
Right. He got killed by Trump. Trump called his wife ugly, said that he was the Zodiac killer, and his dad killed JFK, and that was the end of him.
And I don't know if DeSantis has less of a spine than Cruz, because that's like the lowest bar I could ever imagine in my life, but he's pretty close.
But he doesn't, and he doesn't have, like, Cruz had to because he wanted to keep his Senate seat.
Right.
But DeSantis can't run again for governor in Florida unless they change the law again. But there's a term limit, so he's kind of stuck. And what's he going to do?
Right. I don't know.
So we'll keep an eye on, I'm sure, like we're all going to get so sick of talking about all of these people very soon. So from some people that we're definitely going to be hearing about a lot to some people that we're not going to be hearing anything from for a very long time. We have 2 Oath Keepers who were sentenced after being found guilty for seditious conspiracy in connection to the January 6th failed insurrection. Their founder, Stuart Rhodes.
Mr. Eye Patch.
If you want to hear some more about him, you can go to our Patriot/Militia episode.
He shot himself while giving a gun safety class.
Or our January 6th episode. He was sentenced to 18 years, the longest sentence handed out in connection to January 6th so far. It included an enhanced sentence for terrorism, which was the first in any of the January 6th cases.
Way to make history, Stuart.
I have a quote from the judge. "You, sir, present an ongoing threat and peril to this country." And to the very fabric of our democracy.
And then he stopped looking at a picture of Donald Trump and then turned to Stewart and said, "You're bad too."
And also Kelly Meggs, who's a co-defendant and former leader of the Oath Keepers Florida chapter, was sentenced to 12 years. So these are 2 of the longest sentences handed out so far. It's good news that they're actually having to face some consequences. Again, I don't know where is Trump and all of his senior advisors that were in the White House and all of the people that people like Stuart Rhodes were coordinating all of this with. Where's Roger Stone?
Oh, they're fine. They're not doing anything wrong. It's okay.
Like, all of these people are just the fall guys.
Of course they are. They're the scapegoats.
But this does not look good for Enrique Tarrio and the Proud Boys members who were also awaiting sentencing after having been convicted of this same seditious conspiracy charges earlier this year. So hopefully they will all be going away for a very long time. And this would be incentive for those people to, if they happen to have any evidence of maybe some people higher up that they might have been coordinating with, unless they want to go away for 15 plus years, maybe it's start dropping dime.
I also, to tie this back into our previous Republican primary story, the day after DeSantis's debacle of a launch, he went on to another interview where he said that he'd be open to pardoning January 6th rioters. So,
which is their only hope at this point, right? And basically, Stuart Rhodes threatened violence again while he was in court, saying like, "Well, we'll see what happens after this next election. It might happen again." So yeah, didn't do himself any favors. Probably part of the reason he had such a long sentence.
No kidding. Bye, Stuart. We won't miss you.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, they've won.
Boy, ain't right.
And in Foxed in the Head this week.
You're going to have to explain this one to me.
So this is the first week we're not going with like a pundit, our normal structure for this segment. This starts off as a very serious, not really Foxed in the Head kind of segment. And we thought about this for a normal headline.
Yep.
Earlier in the week, but some recent news that came out has kind of changed this into a much more kind of wacky story, and I think does go to show this same thing that we're talking about, these people that have this right-wing conservative brain, and why we shouldn't be taking any of these people seriously, ever. But let's get to the story.
I'm ready.
So, earlier, and this was, I think, last week. This came out the end of last week. The story was circulating around about a Florida school that had
Of course,
banned...
it's always in Florida.
Well, thanks to the law that Ron DeSantis signed that restricted the topics of books available in Florida schools. That's what you get. And we have a Florida woman who petitioned to ban multiple books from her kid's school. Daily Salinas is a Miami Lakes, Florida resident and parent of 2 students at the Bob Graham Education Center, petitioned the pre-K through 8th grade school to remove 5 books or poems from their library. Those books include The ABCs of Black History. I wonder what the problem is with that one. By Rio Cortez. Cuban Kids by George Anconia. Love to Langston, which is poems about Langston Hughes, who is an African-American poet, by Tony Medina. Countries in the News, Cuba, by Karen Walsh. And The Hill We Climb, by Amanda Gorman, who you might remember she read the poem during Joe Biden's inauguration.
And we actually read that on one of our episodes.
Right, so very the entire country, basically, if you watch the inauguration, heard that poem. I don't remember any calls for censorship at the time or saying that it was somehow inappropriate.
Well, and it was a very beautiful poem, and it kind of fit the mood of the entire country very well, and how it kind of turned over a new leaf.
It was all about coming back together as a country after all of the troubles we'd been facing in that 2020 election. Horrible, horrible stuff.
You're right.
The complaint against The Hill We Climb, the one that was actually filed with the school, lists its author as, I kid you not, Oprah Winfrey.
Absolutely not. Oh, no. Daily, what are you doing?
Not Amanda Gorman, and says that the function of the work is to...
The function?
Quote, cause confusion and indoctrinate students. When asked about it, Salinas said she challenged the Gorman poem, which she says she has not read in its entirety.
Oh my God.
Not that long.
Oh, again, we read it on air. It's...
On the grounds that it contains indirect hate messages.
Indirect? What?
As opposed to the very direct hate messages that Miss Salinas is familiar with.
No kidding. So that's bad.
The reasons cited for opposing the other works included indoctrination.
Just general indoctrination.
And critical race theory.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that's the ABCs of Black history for sure.
Oh, no, I'm reading the second point you had. I was just going to ask, what about the Cuban people?
She said the books about Cuba that she challenged don't tell the whole story about Cuba, communism, the dictators. They're people that are dying and trying to come to America. So I'm guessing she wasn't happy that it maybe portrays Cuba as not just a horrible hellscape.
Or Cuban people as not horribly, like, famished, like they're, like, in the literal Holocaust.
Right.
Jesus Christ.
Because, big surprise, she's of Cuban descent and hates communism, as we'll see. A committee of school representatives, including teachers, administrators, a guidance counselor, and a library media specialist, decided that Countries in the News Cuba could remain on the shelves. The other titles were moved to shelves for middle school students, so restricting access. No one kindergarten through 5th grade can check out these books, even though specifically I think it's the Cuban Kids book is targeted towards like 5-year-olds.
Got it.
So
cool.
Way to cave to this. The review committee said it erred on the side of caution.
Did it?
In deciding to limit. They erred on the side of crazy.
That's what I was going to say. My God.
So that was the news story, right? That's what it was, the headline.
Depressing, crazy stuff.
Until Wednesday of this week, when a left-wing activist group, Miami Against Fascism, found some rather odd things on Salinas' Facebook page after that story became national news. First off, some pictures of Salinas with Proud Boy members.
Oh, cool.
And with the group Moms for Liberty, a Florida-based conservative group behind most of the complaints to ban books across the country while they were protesting at a school board meeting.
Great. So she's just a terrible, terrible person.
Sure. Moms for Liberty's actually since tried to distance themselves from Salinas, saying that they are not affiliated. She's not a member.
No.
Because of this next thing that was found on her Facebook page, a post promoting the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a hoax first published in early 1900s in Russia to spread hatred against Jewish people.
Fantastic.
So I'll give you a little background if you're not really familiar with the Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Oh, no.
It's 24 chapters or protocols that were allegedly taken from minutes from a meeting of Jewish leaders.
What?
The protocols describe the secret plans of Jews to rule the world by manipulating the economy, controlling the media, which is something you still hear to this day.
Yep.
And fostering religious conflict. It was published in the United States by Henry Ford's Dearborn Independent newspaper in 1920. Ford was praised by both Adolf Hitler and Joseph Goebbels.
Oh, no.
For his journalism in exposing this Jewish plot. The protocols were also used by Hitler in multiple speeches, and at least 23 editions of the protocols were published by the Nazi Party.
Holy crap.
So it was huge in Nazi propaganda against Jews in Nazi Germany. Turns out that it was actually copied in large part from a French political satire that never mentioned Jews. It was Maurice Joly's Dialogue in Hell between Machiavelli and Montesquieu, published in 1864. Other investigations revealed that one chapter of a Prussian novel, Hermann Goethe,
oh dear, yeah, Gauche.
Hermann Goetze's Bayeritz. I'm doing my best on this one.
You could not have sounded more American white guy.
Bayeritz. I don't know what Prussian. I don't have a Prussian accent to give you,
dude,
which was published in 1868.
Get woke, bro. Come on.
So it was just completely made up. They just grabbed these other works and then just put Jew in there. And,
yikes.
And this was accepted, and it still is by this lady in Florida putting this on her Facebook page of like, look, this is what the Jews are trying to do. This is how they're trying to take over.
Yikes.
Her post about the protocols included a list of steps depicting how Jewish Zionists would achieve world domination. The graphic included stages such as place our agents and helpers everywhere, replace royal rule with socialist rule. I guess that one would be for the British.
I guess.
Then communism, then despotism, and sacrifice people, including Jews sometimes when necessary.
What?
Because that's how evil they are. They'll even sacrifice their own.
I hate when there's like these worldwide conspiracies and then you have like, they're supposed to have like the secret cabal of the smartest people alive. And it's always the dumbest crap of all time because it's always formulated by the dumbest people ever.
And when confronted about this post, she gave an interview with the Jewish Telegraphic Agency on Wednesday, stating that she wants to apologize to the Jewish community.
Do you?
She even said she has some Jewish friends.
Oh, no. Oh, Daly, what are you doing?
She confirmed that the post was hers and apologized for it. And she said she hadn't read it beyond the word communism.
Oh, my God.
She added that English is not her first language.
I don't care.
And okay, then we're not going to listen to you when you critique books in your children's library that are in English, if you don't understand what you're reading in English. And she went on to say, I see the word communism, and I think it's something about communism. I didn't read the words.
I didn't read the word. No. Oh, God.
All the ones saying that Jews were going to kill us all and eat our children. I didn't read that. It said communism, so I posted it because I thought it was communism is bad, even though it was like in German and I wasn't sure what that was. But okay, what an idiot!
But here's where the really scary part is, though, is that
and she didn't read any of these other books.
No, but she's willing to complain about it, and that's where it scares me a lot because there has been research that shows
and she won.
Yes, but as research has shown, conservatives are far more susceptible to sharing things on social media without even reading them than anyone else. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. And the fact that, like you were saying, that we are succumbing to these people who aren't even reading what they're complaining about, which is the whole idea behind reactionary conservatism today, is insane.
This is the best part for me. Like, again, she didn't read the books that she complained about. In this interview with the Jewish Telegraph, she said she'd only read parts of the books. Quote, they have to read for me because I'm not an expert. I'm not a reader.
I'm not a
book person.
What?
I'm a mom involved in my children's education.
Wait! Boom! QT!
And this person affected the access to 5 works of literature for an entire school. I'm not a book person.
I'm involved in education.
I'm a mom.
Oh, God. No.
They have to read it for me because it sounds like she can't read, at least not in English. And these other people, there was a study, I think it's from the New York Times, that they were, at least a New York Times article, that something like 2/3 of these complaints are coming from like 4 groups.
Correct.
And Moms for Liberty is one of them.
Yes.
And that's who this person is hanging out with. This is the script. You just find books that you don't like because you think that they're teaching about critical race theory, which you don't know what it is, but who cares? It just means teaching that there was slavery. And you object. And you just keep doing that over and over and over again until you get your way. Which in Florida, it does not take very long because the law is literally on your side when it comes to banning books. And I think all you have to do is say critical race theory in Florida and they have to get rid of the book. Florida is currently being sued by Penguin Random House for their law because it's so ridiculous. And the governor of Florida that signed all of these laws is running for president in the United States of America.
On that platform.
Yes, this is what he thinks is going to appeal to voters and get him elected. Hate and banning books. It's really no surprise that this lady is spreading Nazi propaganda.
Well, it shouldn't be a surprise because that's where this crap all comes from anyway. And we'll talk about this in the main segment. But there's always a weird underlying force that pushes this very surface level type of crap. It's never, oh, I just care about kids. It's never that, oh, I just care about the issues of what's going on. There's always some weird, either super conspiratorial or hardcore fundamentalist religious thing behind it. It's always like that. Every time, man.
So I don't know what you do if you're a parent these days. It's insane. I've gone to a couple school board meetings here in my local area. I don't have kids. I'm really happy that I never did have kids. It is nuts. These people are in charge of the school boards. I could 100% see all of the things that this person was saying coming out of one of the crazy school board leaders here in Muskego.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Because they also didn't read the whole thing that started my interest in that was that book, When the Emperor Was Divine, not being picked up in the English program here in Muskego. And one of the people, the school board members, saying that she didn't read it. And it's not that long of a book.
No, we read it.
Mm-hmm. We have the whole episode on it, When the Emperor Was Divine. You can listen to that as well. That is, that person is exactly mirroring this lady from Florida. And these people are in charge everywhere. And this is conservatism these days.
In a nutshell. Absolutely.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? It's hard to get any word in with this clown.
So this week there's been a lot of buzz over a brand new book. We were just talking about books. This one
really
sucks.
Should be banned from schools. But again, not something that we're calling for, because no kid is going to read this anyway.
The book is called Manhood by Senator Josh Hawley out of Missouri.
The manliest man that ever manned. And
it just lays out how America's masculinity is in crisis, because apparently this is the only thing that the right cares about today. And I'll include some other examples that I was doing. We're going to have it a little bit different today. It's going to be a little bit more casual compared to like a deep dive. But I don't know about you, Jason, but for me, when I was preparing for this segment, I found like a bunch of stuff on this where you see Kamala Harris's husband just getting mocked on Fox News for saying we need to focus on tackling toxic masculinity. And they're just scoffing and laughing at like, what a loser. He hates men. I hate this guy. What a terrible, second husband.
Gentleman.
Second gentleman. Thank you.
And they say like, that's why no one knows who he is. I would have loved to have been like, quick, what's Mike Pence's wife's name?
Mother.
No one knows who vice president. The only thing I can think of is like Tipper Gore. I tried to think in my head, and unless they became president,
dude, people hardly know who vice presidents are.
Right. There's no one knows who the wife or husband of the vice president is. That's not a thing.
I found an entire talk by Jordan Peterson about the current crisis of masculinity.
Jordan, that's all he wants to talk about, bucko.
And then there are these like channels that I'm sure many people saw on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you want to find them. And they're like, usually like they're called Middle Ground, Jubilee, or whatever they want to be. And they'll do like these like weird social experiment types where they'll just try to get people who supposedly disagree. They'll try to get them talking to see if we can find some middle ground. And it's usually just garbage at the end of the day. But I found one where they have trans men and conservative men talking about whether masculinity is in crisis in America. Even Tucker Carlson did an entire docuseries episode.
I remember that one.
Called The End of Men, with a super homoerotic trailer.
The ball tanning.
Where guys are tanning their balls with red light.
And standing on like a cliffside.
Yep.
Tanning their balls.
Where he unironically praises, quote, bro science as actual scientific rigor that's going to upend the real like scientific movement. Which is insane.
Joe Rogan.
No kidding.
Dr. Joe Rogan. He's doing some research.
But everywhere you look, and actually even when I didn't include in this, but even when I was doing that, my algorithm screwed again.
Yeah,
man.
I get a lot of Andrew Tate videos.
I'm actually getting a lot of videos from the Young Americas Foundation or something like that. It's an art conservative like student college group type of foundation that just gets pooled like millions of dollars from like right-wing millionaires from coming in. And I got an ad that had Matt Walsh on fire. The left is lying to you about toxic masculinity.
I remember when there was that Gillette ad a few years ago.
There was, and we can talk about that as well.
Yeah.
So, and this all culminates into the conservative obsession with masculinity. And, well, Senator Josh Hawley's new book, Manhood, which is, by the way, I just want to throw this out there, is currently a #1 bestseller in the Christian men's issues category. I don't know what that is, but that sounds like a terrible category.
I'm going to write a Buddhist men's book and get the Buddhist men's issues category #1.
And we didn't read the book, so we're just like Daily Salinas. Instead of actually talking about the book, we're going to read his op-ed, which was meant to promote his book, and then use that to discuss masculinity and how fragile conservative men view it. Are you ready, Jason?
Yep. I'll let you do the reading, and I'll jump in.
All right.
Probably very often when I have a comment.
Published on May 16th from Josh Hawley, America's men are in crisis, and it's rooted in one big lie.
And I'll just start off by saying, look, you dress how you want to dress. I'm not really going to judge you. But honestly, like, Josh Hawley wears very fitted, tight, stylish suits.
Yes, he does.
And I'm a little bit older than you are. Josh Hawley would have gotten made fun of.
Dude, I was going to say he would have gotten beaten up. He's in Missouri. Remember that. He grew up in Missouri. He would have gotten beaten up.
Yeah, I mean, you remember, like, it's probably 10 years ago now, like, the term metrosexual was getting thrown out quite a lot. That's what Josh Hawley looks like.
Absolutely.
So for him to be like traditional masculinity from the 50s, you would have been called a sissy and, gotten beaten up very severely, honestly, just from the way you dress. And I'm glad we're not in those times anymore. We've progressed so that Josh Hawley can look as fabulous as he does in his very tight suit.
Well, and keep in mind, this is the same guy that was also seen during the January 6th committee running for his life.
While giving a fist, the fist to the, solidarity.
Remember, this is that.
Let me get out of here.
Yeah, so remember, this is that beta male coward we're dealing with right now. So here we go. Buckle in, everybody. Of all things this country needs, stronger borders, better paying jobs.
Hey, we agree on something.
Some basic safety on our streets. Above all, America needs stronger men. The left has spent decades running men down, blaming them for everything from climate change to, quote, the patriarchy.
Is it like a thing that men are responsible for climate change?
Well, I want to know
specifically
what men are being run down. What are you talking about? Men are being run down and blaming them for climate. I've never even heard of that. Have you heard of that point? Men we're blaming men for climate change?
I mean, they're in charge of all the corporations that we're blaming.
So
for
I
climate
guess we
change.
could say that, like, maybe, like,
but we're
sure?
not. It's not because they're men that they're destroying the environment.
And the patriarchy is a literal thing. Let's also point that out.
That's capitalism, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and the fact that men have kept women down for generations is just history. That's not made up. We know that happened, Josh. What are you talking about? Anyway, they're wrong. Strong men aren't the problem. For America, stronger, better men are the solution.
and again, dude, I can bench press Josh Hawley. Like, that dude is not.
I can bench press Josh Hawley. Are you kidding me? Dude's like 170. But we'll continue. All is not well with men in this country. The numbers tell the tale. Men are lonelier than ever before. They're dropping. Don't laugh.
Josh Hawley is lonelier than ever before.
Well, especially now conservative men with all their wives leaving them.
Yeah, Steven Crowder.
Elon Musk. They're dropping out of the labor force in greater numbers than ever before. They're struggling more with drug abuse and alcohol. They increasingly forego a college education, even as they delay getting married and having kids.
Wait, isn't it?
So let's stop there. Hang on. We need a pause.
Isn't it the conservatives that tell people they don't need college?
Jason, it's not just that. It is Josh Hawley who tries to smack down college education and universities all the time. It's your fault, Josh, that they're not going because you're saying that colleges are stupid.
And struggling more with drug abuse and alcohol. That's what everyone on the left is talking about when they talk about toxic masculinity.
Yes.
That's the problem. That's the outcome of this just shut up and take it, suck it up mentality is you turn to drugs and alcohol to deal with your problems because you don't want to talk about it because you're not supposed to because you're a man.
And this just drives me nuts, man. The whole, even as they delay getting married and having kids, I'm absolutely sick of people being told, especially my generation as millennials, being told, you need to have more kids. You need to get married and have more kids. We were taught from the get-go that we need to be safe when it comes to sex, that if we have an accidental baby, our lives are over.
According to the conservatives, you should wait for marriage.
That's what I don't get. No matter what we do, they are never happy with us. It drives me freaking nuts, man.
Well, and again, people are delaying getting married and having kids because they're not making enough money to to support that. Like, that's the actual problem.
But that was a lesson that our parents' generations taught us.
Well, right. Well, okay.
Don't have kids until you have a good paying job. Don't have kids out of wedlock.
Well, and that's what every conservative is, right? Like, that's the three things you need. I don't know who was pushing that, but that's
Ben Shapiro
of like, that. Yeah, like this will make you better, and it's all those things. Don't have sex before marriage. Don't have kids before marriage.
Get a job.
And have a job first before you get married. Like, those were like the three things that they push. So that's what happens. And it's not bad advice, really.
But it's very surface level advice.
Well, and the problem is, if you can't get a good paying job and you're only able to get like gig work or whatever the garbage that people are having to do these days, when is it ever going to be the right time that you're financially ready to start having a family?
Absolutely.
You can't buy a house because that's like an unattainable dream these days for kids that are just coming out of college or not college if they listen to Josh Hawley. And they have $100,000 in college loan debt that we're not going to do anything about. Again, thanks to the Republicans. What is that going to? These are all just consequences of Republican policies and what the modern world is. Like, yes, when our parents were our age, they could get a job that basically paid a living wage and they could afford to buy a house because houses were very inexpensive at that time compared to salary. Like, 1 year's salary could buy you a house. Good luck with that now.
Of course. So thank you. I really appreciate that because I could not agree more with everything you just said. Let's go on. We are 2 paragraphs into this thing, Jason.
All right.
If any other demographic group was struggling to this extent, we'd call it a national crisis. And it is.
So this is just the aggrievement. The real persecuted minority in this country is the straight white man.
Jason, I got through one sentence.
It's also a paragraph, to be fair.
I hate how this is all like formatted too, by the way. Anyway, but the left doesn't see it that way. They blame boys and men for the sins of the world. They say They say all masculinity is, quote, toxic. That simply to be a man is to make the world a worse place. They propose to do away with traditional masculinity altogether. Now, hang on.
How would you do away with traditional masculinity?
Well, okay, let's start with all this. They blame boys and men for the sins of the world. What are you talking about, Josh? What the are you even talking about? Because first off, sins are your word, not ours.
Right.
Second, what do we blame little Timmy for that's happening in China when he's living in, I don't know, Colorado? I don't care what little boys are doing. What are you talking about that we're blaming boys for the sins of the world? Again, is this like some weird thing where he thinks like because the men are controlling all the corporations right now and the world's screwed, so it's men's fault? Is that like where he's hearing this?
Charge of the government forever.
Yeah, is that where he's? I don't know. And then I hate this as well. I'm glad you brought up the whole Gillette thing because this is exactly what I thought of when I heard this before too. They say all masculinity is toxic. When that Gillette ad came on, it never once said that men were horrible, evil people. It just said we need to be better men, and it takes good men to help produce better men. That's all it said. And people on the right lost their goddamn minds because they were saying they hate men. They think all men are just the worst evil people of all time. No one is saying that, Josh. Nobody. When we talk about toxic masculinity, we're talking about traditional toxic traits, like you said before, that we happily progressed out of. Yeah.
Which is still something that they talk about constantly. I'm an alpha male. You got to be an alpha. What does that mean? Like, you have to fight off all the other males to take your property. Yeah, that sucks. Like, you imagine being married to that guy.
Right.
Ask former Mrs. Crowder.
Right. So when we talk about toxic masculinity, I think this is so important. We need to clarify that we are not talking about all men. No one ever has. We're talking about these toxic traits that men push upon themselves, that dude bro influencer like Josh Hawley, like Jordan Peterson, like
Andrew Tate.
Absolutely. They're saying you have to like have sex with all these women. You need the fast cars and all this money. You need to have the hustler mentality, dude. That's toxic masculinity because it's all bullshit at the end of the day.
And it's bad for both you and the people in your lives.
Right. So when we're talking about toxic masculinity, we're talking about traits that are hurting the men themselves and the people around them. They're not being evil. They're victims of nonsense, archetypal, weird social structures that traditional people tried to put lessons on from like back in the, well, all the way back from like biblical era up until today. And we saying we need to do away with those things. That's it. Nothing else. We're 4 paragraphs into this thing, man.
He goes on.
The left's campaign to re-educate men begins as early as preschool, where too many boys are punished for aggressive play and, if they don't comply, medicated out of their boyishness.
Which, okay, so if your child is playing aggressively in preschool...
Like if little Timmy's hitting Josh, we need to stop little Timmy from hitting Josh.
Right. It's not, we don't praise that and be like, well, he's the alpha, so we got to let him have his way. That's the only way he's going to learn. And I don't understand what he means by medicated out, because the only thing I can think of is like ADHD, but that's not.
I think that's
like
what he's talking about, though.
Behavior.
I think he's talking like ADHD, like in Adderall stuff.
Timmy's being too aggressive. Let's sedate him.
Right.
Like that's not what happens. But whatever. Let's keep going.
As young men, they're denied the manufacturing jobs that allowed their fathers to earn good wages.
Yes, exactly. And whose fault is that?
It ain't the Democrats' fault, I can tell you that for sure. Josh, it ain't the socialists' fault for having that. Josh, it's the capitalists. Well, let's talk about libertarianism and Ayn Rand all day long. Oh, I'm sorry. Moving on. The governing class, having long ago shipped those jobs overseas.
What class is Josh Hawley a part of?
Oh, I think he's the blue-collar worker.
Oh.
You know, the super preppy rich blue-collar worker that governs everybody else.
Who's in Congress. He's not part of the governing class that he's complaining about right now.
Okay, we see this crap all the time. How many times do you see people complaining about the class that they are in on the right? I think like during like the last...
The elitists.
Right. You see so many senators and Congress people talking about the elite. I'm like, you're the elite, dude.
Yeah, you went to an Ivy League school. You're a U.S. senator.
I know.
Your family is extremely wealthy. You're a millionaire. Those elitists.
Well, and we're
in their ivory towers. Like, you literally own an ivory tower. What are you talking about?
We see that right now with Ron DeSantis because he has a JD from an Ivy League school and he's trying to pretend that all Ivy League schools are evil.
And Trump is attacking him for it. He went to Penn.
I know, man.
I mean, he didn't earn it. He bought and cheated his way in, but he still went to an Ivy League school.
Now, before I say this next part, I just want to remember, did we not just say that Josh Hawley, here it is. Before Josh Hawley said they increasingly forego a college education. Remember that right now. Because now he says, back down to where we were, and set adrift on college campuses filled with activists who despise them. And popular culture relentlessly bangs the same drum. When men aren't morons, they are actively evil.
I will say, I'll give him this one, that a lot of popular culture depict it's usually the father character as just the dumbest.
Like a bumbling buffoon.
Right, like the Homer Simpson problem where Homer just gets dumber and dumber but that's not an attack on masculinity. That's just lazy writing.
Right. But then I think there's always and again, I think this is why he has a surface level point, but he's just so close to getting it. And then he just takes a hard left turn into crazy town, because that's what toxic masculinity is that either you're super dumb and fat and unappealing, like, the Homers or the whatever, bumbling buffoon men that comedic shows and movies portray you as, or you have to be John freaking Wick. It's always one or the other. You have to be either a total badass or a total moron, thanks to our popular culture. And that popular culture is pushed by toxic masculinity. One of my favorite parts, I don't know if you played it, Jason, but one of my favorite parts was during the new God of War, the Ragnarok.
I have not played. I don't have a PlayStation 5.
Well, this is a slight spoiler, so I apologize. I won't say what it's about, but there's a part in it where Kratos, the literal God of War, who is like ripped and just teeming with muscle. And I mean, I cannot imagine a more archetypal person to say like, this is what a man's man should be, right? In it, he just like weeps and starts crying because he has his heart broken.
Woke.
Right. And that was one of my favorite parts of that entire game, because you have this guy who's like supposed to be like this very stoic, does not feel emotion type of man. And he just starts bawling his eyes out in this. And they let you sit there in it. And you can say, like, he's still a man and you feel for him. And that's okay. You can be sad and be a man, you guys. But people like Josh Hawley are the ones who are saying you can't do that. So you have to be the roles of either the moron or the actively evil badass dude, because you can't have feelings in Josh Hawley's universe.
Well, and that's why you get the same thing with the MRA crowd that talk about, you know, these same things of like, oh, how men are portrayed poorly in the society and they're attacked and they attack the patriarchy. And that's why suicide rates of men are so high. No, it's because of the world that the patriarchy built.
Yep.
Which has men at the top, and they're the ones that should always be successful and be the head of the household.
And if you're not, you're worthless.
Right. So then you end up killing yourself because you don't live up to that standard that was set by the patriarchy. And it's like they don't get it. Like, you're complaining about the same thing that other people are complaining about, just for different reasons. And you think that it's their fault, but you're the one who built the system. That idea that you should be the breadwinner and you should feel like you're not a man if you're not the head of your household, you did that. That wasn't women who made that. They didn't put themselves as second-class citizens and then make you feel bad when you can't live up to their expectations. No, that was you. And we're both saying that needs to stop. It's just you think stopping means just continue going on with the way we're going
while complaining about it.
And we're saying, no, let's build a better world that doesn't have those expectations, and you can lean on your partner and both figure things out, and it's fine if you fail. It's not the end of the world. But no, that's not the don't belittle me and my penis, my masculinity. It's just stupid.
At bottom, this critique of men is rooted in a lie. That men shouldn't be leaders, creators, and heroes, but just consumers looking out for themselves. The truth is just the opposite. We need men to step up. America's men have the power to transform this country for the better.
Not women, though.
Well, get ready. Here's the suggestions coming. Want to curb the epidemic of child poverty? Get a father to start contributing to his wife and children. Want to address the cataclysm of youth violence? Put a father in the picture.
Who's responsible for doing this?
Again, that's the whole freaking point. It's when we want to talk about having, like, we want to talk about child poverty.
Get a father.
Get a father?
Yeah, like there's a lot of children that have fathers that are still in poverty.
No kidding.
And so then again, it's on the father. Like, it's your fault if you're the man and you're not able to provide for your family.
Well, because this is the whole part about the individualist mindset is they can just say, well, screw you, you're just a loser. It doesn't matter if you're working hard or not, because there's plenty of men that'll say the amount of wealth you make is how manly you are. And I've seen, again, in the videos I've been searching.
Andrew Tate,
right.
For sure.
And what drives me nuts is, okay, so the guy who's working 4 jobs trying to make ends meet, which is the pinnacle of what conservatives want out of people, he's just a loser and he's not an actual man.
Cuck.
Right. It's so dumb. And that's where you get, this is just an excuse to not care about the actual issues of the day. This is just repackaging and, like you said, almost kind of victim blaming to make sure that Josh Hawley doesn't need to care about anything other than himself, because that's all he cares about.
I'll let you finish this paragraph.
Men can help bring peace and order to a nation racked with crises. They can change the destiny of their families and whole neighborhoods. Again, not women though, apparently.
Yeah, not strong enough.
Their power, once tapped, can be a mighty and world-shaping thing. Because that's one thing that we never really tapped so far as a human race, was the power of men.
We've never been in charge
Never
before.
did.
And I'll say, like, this whole thing is very racist, too. Curb the epidemic of child poverty. Get a father to be in your kid's life.
Yeah, where do we usually hear that mantra for?
And it's like, well, yeah, but you keep putting them in jail, and that's why you have this issue, one, of boys growing up without their fathers in the black community, but then also it's that same thing of, like, men should be men. They don't have to bother raising the kids or doing anything. Like, that's also what leads a lot of these children to grow up without a father figure, is because women oddly don't like being treated like trash and don't stay with men who treat them that way.
Well, and that's like the weird thing too, is that you have a lot of these like MRA types that would then blame women for the downfall of masculinity, saying they should be okay with the roles that they're given. Like, absolutely not. Like, you get abused for generations at a time and think that you'll be okay with it. Screw off. And if you thought Josh Hawley had the answer, and the answer was literally just pull yourself up by your bootstraps,
bucko,
get ready, because it's not even that. It's even dumber. Power alone, though, isn't enough. Power only becomes true strength, a force for good, when it's used in the right ways for the right reasons. What we need is a guide, a roadmap for what it means to be a good man.
Rand McNally.
And for that, we should turn to the faith of our fathers.
I'm pretty sure my father didn't care at all about religion.
Well, get ready. In the same breath that the left attacks traditional manhood, they attack traditional faith as well. That's no coincidence. Faith and manhood are linked because for centuries, men have looked to faith, to the Bible, to understand who they are and what they can be. In this time of turmoil, our ancient faith can guide us again. The story of the Bible is more than a collection of familiar tales.
No, it's not.
It is an invitation to men to find their place in the cosmos, to take up their role in a grand drama that supercharges their lives with meaning.
Is he talking about Star Wars?
I am not kidding. That is a real sentence. And they call atheists arrogant, man. The Bible is not only just a guidebook for life.
Invitation to men to find. Well, I mean, it does definitely not really care about women. That's true. But in their place in the cosmos, the Bible's not really interested in the cosmos very much. I'm not sure what Bible Josh Hawley's been reading, but I don't think it's the same one that I've read. Take up their role in a grand drama.
I know.
What are you talking about?
Well, that's the good evil. That's the God versus the devil story. Because no longer, when you're a Christian, it's not that you're trying to make the best living for yourself and others. It's that you're in a grand supernatural war between light and darkness.
Yeah, it's Star Wars. That's what I'm saying. I think he's confusing the Bible with Star Wars.
Beginning with Adam in the Garden of Eden, the Bible says men are tasked with bringing order to the world, transforming chaos into beauty. Okay, Jordan Peterson. The wilderness into the garden.
What? No, that's not how that works at all. Again, I don't think he read the Bible.
Oh, you don't think Josh Hawley actually read a book in his life?
Adam does not create the garden. He doesn't do anything. Just hangs out. Adam was a beta male cuck. He didn't even have a job.
I mean, he was tasked with naming all the animals and stuff.
Yay? That's woman's
He brought
work.
order to the world, man. To perform that noble task, every man must form his character. He must shape his soul. The path to manhood is the path to virtue.
That's meaningless.
And in almost everything that I heard, in the Fox News thing about Kamala Harris's husband, in the Jordan Peterson video, in the conservative men when they were talking about what masculinity was, in Matt Walsh talking about it, and Ben Shapiro talking about it, they always go back to religion. All of them did. And I was fascinated by that, but I'm also not surprised, because at the end of the day, there are no real arguments for this. It's the fact that religion has pushed for these traditional, very misogynistic gender roles that are meant to keep men at the top and women at the bottom.
Well, I'll give you a hint about why that might be. The Bible was not actually written by some sort of supernatural deity. It was written by men.
And primitive men who literally kept women as
like
sex
Josh
property.
Hawley.
Yeah. To finish it out, here we go. We're almost done, man. Men are called to form the character of fathers and husbands. They are charged to give themselves for others and humbly accept their own limits. Just as Abraham devoted himself to his wife Sarah and trusted God's promise of a son to come.
Okay, now I'm convinced Josh Hawley has not read the Bible, because that is not what happens at all. Actually, Abraham impregnates his slave, Hagar, because, and of course, it is the Bible, so they do blame it on Sarah, that it was her fault for not trusting God. Just like the whole apple with Adam and Eve, it was really Eve's fault. Well, the reason that Abraham had to rape his slave, Hagar, is because his wife Sarah did not trust God, because she was 90 years old and hadn't gotten pregnant yet, but God promised them that they were going to repopulate the world, and so he banged his slave, and then Sarah, like a true wife, got all jealous about it and then beat their property. As Abraham said that I'll let you do whatever you want. It's your property. You can do whatever you want. And then she was, I think it says mean to her or something. It means she beat her. And then Hagar took off. So that's the story. It is not at all what Josh Hawley is saying. They did not trust God's promise of a son. He impregnated his slave and she bore him a son. And then, yes, eventually actually Sarah, the 90-year-old woman, because the Bible's totally true, y'all. It's real science. So that's what happened. And wow, yeah, no, Josh Hawley's not read the Bible. I'm convinced. He's proven it to me. But
go on.
Yeah, as an atheist, I couldn't let misrepresentation of the Bible go.
That's why I asked to do this for the segment. I just wanted to trigger you so bad. Men are called to the character of warriors and builders. Okay, Josh. They must battle evil and bring beauty out of chaos. Just as Joshua challenged the monsters of Canaan and David laid the foundations of God's temple.
David was so gay. That was like super, super gay. And that's great that if you're a gay Christian, you have your figure to look up to there. Yeah, men are warriors. They should be doing the killing. We probably shouldn't fight wars and kill each other.
And be smarter than that, but okay. And men are called to the character of priests and kings. Ew. I don't like that anymore. Bad timing, Josh. Bad timing. They must bring the promise of eternity everywhere they go and use their power to preserve truth and liberty. For years, American men have heard just one story.
The Bible, if you are a conservative.
No kidding. That they're outmoded and oppressive. That the best they can do is stand aside and let today's elites run things.
Like Josh Hawley.
Like Josh freaking Hawley, who's a man who apparently didn't stand to the side. So what are you talking about?
Yeah, men still run like 90% of the corporations.
Everything. They run everything. What are you talking about?
Are overrepresented in every aspect of the elites, but it's the elites that are keeping them down.
Josh, you're not some rebellious hero here who's standing up to some grand, dark empire. You're just another white guy who can't shut the hell up. Why do you think we're having a podcast right now? It's because we're two white guys who can't shut the hell up.
Refuse. At least no one listens to us.
Oh my God. It's a story preached by our contemporary culture from cradle to grave. Stand down. Be passive. You'll just make things worse. I mean, well, again, you want to talk about how things are going right now because of men? We can talk about that, Josh.
I think
Josh
Hawley has heard all of those things a lot in his life, and it's true.
He just can't handle the truth because facts don't care about his feelings. It's time to start telling a better story. It's time to call our boys and men to lead. That's how you transform a nation.
There are no men in leadership positions in this country. That's the problem.
What a beta male. That's all I gotta say. So to close it out, Jason, let me ask you this, because I feel like a lot of it's clearly toxic masculinity, and he's so freaking scared about his own identity and his own sexuality that he has to just constantly lash out because I need people to take me seriously. I need to be a man. I was actually talking to my fiance about this op-ed, and my first thought was,
you're in your 30s and you haven't gotten married yet? Jeez.
No, I haven't gotten a kid yet either. I'm a loser, dude.
Delay starting a family.
I'm such a beta cuck.
It's the problem with your generation.
Yeah, right? I suggested, though, during that, because I'm a man, I have good ideas. We should
suggested, come on.
We should have a test to see what true masculinity is. And that test should be, can you wear a skirt without bitching about it? And not feel
you're Scottish, you can.
And not feel terrified that you're going to be considered not a man. Because I feel like people like Josh Hawley, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate could not wear a dress or a skirt because they'd be so goddamn afraid that they'd be called gay or feminine or anything like that. Dude, I would rock a freaking skirt. I think you would rock a freaking skirt. I think you'd be just fine. But I wanted to legitimately ask.
I mean, I have nice narrow hips. But would you
be comfortable in your
dress?
But would you be comfortable in your masculinity that you could wear a dress? Legitimately asking you.
Would I wear a dress? And feel comfortable outside? No.
No, I feel comfortable in your masculinity. You wouldn't be considered.
I don't care about that.
That's what I'm saying.
I feel like I'd have to find the right. They don't really make dresses in my size. I don't think. I mean, so that's one issue. And they make women's clothes to try to accentuate their bodies, and that's not going to work for me. I prefer the patriarchy when it comes to men's clothing and the way they cover up.
Jason, I've seen your Facebook picture. I've seen you make the ooh face.
I have a nice. I tried an Instagram modeling career.
It looked great.
For a very short time.
I was proud of you.
My wife almost died laughing when we took that picture. We were in Japan. That's why we were off for pretty much all of April. And so we were there during cherry blossom season. And I did I had to show her how it's done.
Yeah.
You know,
and you
take
did
the
a
picture.
fantastic job. But that's my whole
I am
point.
fabulous.
Thank you. That's
But
my
I'm not
whole
wearing a
fucking point.
dress. Like, I'm wearing comfortable clothing.
No, I don't care if you're gonna actually wear it just for real purpose. I'm
Yeah,
just saying, like,
yeah.
I'm saying people like Josh Hawley, if you ask them to wear a dress or like to show your manliness and feel comfortable in a dress, because like, do you remember the whole thing?
I wouldn't wear that suit that Josh is wearing. I couldn't pull that off. That's for sure.
But that's what he thinks it's manly though. What a loser.
Because he's a big bad man.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He can.
This is just populism. That's all this is. It's his trying to appeal to the common man when he is not that at all.
You know, also I learned about, by the way, when doing research for this thing, that Josh and his wife have a Christian podcast, a Christian couples podcast.
Ugh, I'm sure that's wonderful.
Isn't that great? There you go. That's Josh Hawley's take on masculinity, and I'll include all the other stuff that you can.
And our way too long
watch.
commentary of his article.
So don't be fooled by BS toxic masculinity influencers. Don't let it get to you.
Keep your kids away from people like
No
that.
kidding.
They're horrible. This is what they're preaching to your children, that they need to be men, and it's not healthy.
No.
This is just perpetuating the same things that we've been doing for the past 5,000 years, and like bemoaning the state of the world and then saying that we need to double down and keep everything going. Men are alcoholics and drug addicts, and also we need to reinforce that they need to support the family, and everyone's counting on them and relying on them, and any problems financially, it's 100% their fault. Yeah, those two things are very much connected.
So don't forget to send this to the man in your life, and we'll see you next week.
Just in time for Father's Day.
Woo! Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively. Also, I can't hear anybody in my headphones.
Do you check your plugs on your end? Because everything else is good.
I heard myself plug in.
I can hear mine. Did you get it in the wrong hole again?
No, I'm all. Oh, yeah, I did. Hang on. There we go. That's better.
Told you, wrong hole.
Wrong hole. It's a common problem.